Well, I'm really excited this week because I have followed this nursery or this business for so long. Welcome, Eric, to the Flower Podcast.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for introducing me. Such a nice, warm introduction, and I'm really excited to be here with you.
Yeah, well, I have looked forward to this. You've been on my bucket list for a little while, and I so many of my customers source their tropical flowers from your business, Green Point Nurseries. So I'm going to say Hawaii, but which island are you on?
We're on the island called Hawaii Island.
Oh, okay,
It's also known as the Big Island.
the Big Island, sure.
Um, but the marketing people are rephrasing and recoining it Hawaii Island now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've got to always put a new spin on things, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. It's marketing.
Yeah, that's right. It's marketing. We'll leave that to them. We'll leave that to them.
Yeah.
So I have seen your product and followed so many of my customers who do hotel work or did back when we had that stuff before COVID, right? Or just really did a lot of weeklies or things that needed to last a long time, or they just wanted that really cool tropical feel. You were the company they went to, and I would love to
Nice.
hear your story. How did you or your family? I'm not even sure the whole story, but I'd love to hear how Greenpoint Nurseries came about.
Great. Well, obviously, I can't take all the credit, right? So first of all, I wouldn't be here if my mom and dad didn't meet. So
I
um,
think we can all say that.
yeah. so so thank you, mom and dad, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So I guess early on, my dad loved plants. Maybe we'll start with dad. Yeah.
Okay.
My dad really loved plants. So as a kid, the elders, uncles and aunties, would teach him how to garden. And so he must have been like 8, 9, 10 years old. And he started learning how to grow not only vegetables, but a lot of flowering plants. And so gardening was very, very popular in Hilo. I know in those days, and we're talking about maybe the 40s and 50s when he was growing up,
Wow.
it was pretty rural in Hilo. I mean, we're rural now still, but it was pretty rural. So everything was quite quaint in Hilo. So you went to work or you went to school, you came home, you did chores, and part of the chores were gardening. Everybody took care of their own yards, and everybody did their own vegetable, fruit, and flower gardening. And that's where he learned, and he I guess got a green thumb when he was young. Then he was a typical kid, grew up, went to school, and he was very fortunate because in high school, he got accepted to go to Grinnell College in Iowa. And so he spent about I'll say 4 to 5 years in Iowa. He never came home because in those days, the
Yeah.
families were modest and they couldn't bring you home twice a year. So you learned how to write letters and you used operator assisted telephone if you needed to call. Most people don't remember about operator assisted phone calls, but yeah, in those days you couldn't just pick up your cell phone. What cell phone? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he went to Iowa and spent those 4 or 5 precious years, and he always mentioned to us kids that they were really really good times. But what he remembered was that every time he spent winter breaks or spring breaks with families, my grandmother would send care packages to the hostess,
Oh, wow.
and always in the care packages would be Anthuriums. And as a kid, he was always amazed because he would get asked so many questions. The hostess would be just blown away. First time they've seen these kind of flowers, number one, thought they were amazing. Lasted a long time. Very waxy looking. Kept the water in the vase clean. If you were allergic, no pollen, so you didn't have a
Right.
problem. And among macadamia nuts and pineapples and other stuff she sent. But so when he came back from school, he wanted to go into something that he could export out of Hilo. Because when he got back, economy in the late 50s was still what he considered slow. or depressed. Maybe he used the term depressed, but it was slow compared to what we think slow is. He said it was really slow. So he considered fruit, and he considered plants and flowers, and he picked Anthurium as one of the crops to go into, because of that impression he got with people on the mainland just loving and just being totally blown away with seeing Anthuriums from Hawaii. And so and in the beginning, he became at first he bought and sold flowers, and eventually forced to be a grower. And that's kind of like where the story starts. Yeah, that's how he picked Anthurium, export crop, and became a grower.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I can't imagine growing up in your childhood is in Hawaii and you go to college in Iowa in the middle of farmland and corn and soybeans and wheat and whatever else. Yeah. I mean, that's just amazing. And I would have probably been really homesick, snow, cold, all of that. And then and he's, because I would think that there's really no seasons in Hawaii, I would think. Is that true? Or
yeah, I mean, we have mild seasons, put it that way. Our winters, we go to a brisk, cool 60 degrees maybe in the evenings, and the days might hover at around 70, 75. And in the summers, we'll get up to 80, 85 degrees in the day, but at night it'll probably stay 70 degrees. So 10 degrees is a big change in the tropics. we really feel those 10 degrees here.
Well, I'm looking at you now because we're doing this via Zoom, and it looks like you have a jacket on. So that's not something I thought. I didn't. It's kind of like they don't have air conditioning in Maine. I wouldn't think you need a jacket in Hawaii. But then there's always coolers, I guess, or something like that. So.
Well, the guys in the back office, they're always arguing. Some guys put it down to 60 degrees, and some guys put it up to 70, and so I wear the jacket. I don't have to argue with everybody.
Yeah, I like that. You're prepared. I like that. Okay, so he came back and he started growing Anthuriums.
Yes.
It's to export, and I can imagine at that point that was a huge novelty, which I could see a lot of people being excited about. So where did it grow from there?
Well, he immediately found out that he exceeded what he could buy and sell. He exceeded, because during the holiday period, he couldn't get enough product.
Right.
Which he became a grower, and so he immediately looked at the West Coast, and there was some competition in those days on the West Coast. So he went to the East Coast, and he noticed there was some competition on the East Coast, but in between the coasts, there was nothing. So being that he went to school in the Midwest, he started covering mid America to Midwest, and down into the southern some of the southern areas, because he felt comfortable in the middle of the country. Mm-hmm. Of course, he still sold to the coasts, but he knew that there was competition there. So a couple things he did. One was he befriended an extension agent at the time, Dr. Tadashi Higaki. Mm-hmm. He was an extension agent that got his doctorate and became an administrator. And he did a lot of, production experiments, from nematode and getting chemicals to control nematodes, to insect pests like mites, thrips, beetles. And he did a lot of these testing and fungus, of course, on the flowers. Sure. So the fungicides, insecticides, nematicides, miticides, all those kind of testing to make my dad a better grower. And many of those tests that he did with Dr. Higaki are still standards, industry standards. The chemicals maybe might change, but the practices, the IPMs, are still here today that we use in production. Mm. He also worked with the breeding program. At that time, there was a Dr. Kamemoto out of Honolulu, out of College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, in the early 50s, started our breeding program for Anthurium and Dendrobium in Hawaii. So we have a relationship with University of Hawaii, CTAR, as we call the Ag College, the acronym. You know, it's over 50 years old, our relationship with them. And they've produced many commercial varieties for us to use, which is really what my dad, I guess the initial goal was, produce more quality bulletproof type of plants or germplasm that Hawaii could be known to keep introducing new product.
Right.
You know, product that was did well in production, but also did well with export. So for a wholesale shipper like him, he wanted something that he could ship easily. The flower was very disciplined, didn't fall apart, yeah, in transport. Some of the varieties were not as durable, so you could maybe only sell it in the state because the vase life wasn't long, or it got bruised, it couldn't take the travel.
Sure.
So a lot of the university varieties, a lot of the desirable traits, he was at the cusp of determining all these desirable traits with Dr. Kamemoto. So the nice thing is, you know, today we have Dr. Tessie Amore, who's a protege of Dr. Kamemoto, who is in charge of the breeding program, and she works with myself and our team. And so with my sons coming in, Chris and John right now, she's working with them also now. So we're entering our third generation. So that's kind of nice too.
That's incredible. So, okay, so let's get to you, because you grew up in this business, obviously. So did you always want to be part of it, or did you become a prodigal and leave and come back, or how did that work?
I guess when I was a kid growing up, typical kid growing up, my dad let me choose what I wanted to choose. I really didn't know what I wanted to be in middle school and high school. I thought I wanted to be a professional surfer.
The secret's out. Okay.
That was my dream job. You know, what more fun could you do with life? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. And so my dad said, you know, you're probably not going to make it as a professional surfer. And so I kind of listened, and I thought, well, maybe he has a point. So for one thing, I don't think he would be my main sponsor. So that kind of told me better listen to what he's saying. So he recommended to me when I was in high school, you know, you should become a dentist. I told myself, dentist. I really honestly didn't see myself doing that for life. Yeah,
he was trying to make the nursery look better, is what he was trying to do. So
exactly. So I told him, hey, I think you know, after school, you know, I went into an ag college, and there's a college of ag here. So I told him, you know, I want to come and be a partner with you. I want to join you. And he said, okay, no problem. And that's when I guess I made that commitment to come into the family business. Yeah. But he was already doing things already to prepare me, you know, as I look back, because my four years of high school, I couldn't work. I couldn't go outside to work. I had to work on the nurseries. So he had made me work all the menial jobs, and I had to learn how to drive a truck. You know, I get my license, learn how to drive a truck so I could run crews of my own, which we did with our boys too. Our three sons, we did the same thing. So poor guys, they got stuck with the same family discipline, I guess.
I don't know. That's a bad thing. Why is that a bad thing? I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we learn. You know, they're like my friends. Their friends were going to the mall, bowling alley, or you know, horsing around at the beach. But during the summers, at least during the days, we had to work, and then Monday to Friday, we had to work, and then after work or weekends, we had a little time off, so we could horse around.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And so now you say, your children are getting involved in the business, and
I got two sons, my two older ones. Yeah, Chris is the oldest, and John, Christopher and Jonathan both. Chris is the oldest, and John is the second son. They've gone through school got out and they decided to join the business too.
That's awesome.
So, and my dad, what he did was, when I was 12 years old, he took me out of school for 1 week early, in my when I was a sixth grader, and he took me to Anchorage, Alaska, on a trade mission.
Okay.
I thought that was the coolest. Got out of school 1 week early, and I got to travel with him. So he took me on a trade mission, and little did I know, he was kind of exposing me, to being on the road, traveling. Yeah. So I was the only kid in the group. Yeah. Nobody else brought their kids. He brought me. I guess he was exposing me. So I did the same thing with my boys too. So I let them travel, and it really excited them to see the fun side of the business. Yeah. If you,
Sure.
if you want to call it the travel side, to meet people, to see how other people live, and how they do business. And I think that helped them make a decision to come into the family business too, though.
Well, I want to just jump in here because I think there's one thing. Yes, it's exciting to see how other people do business, and all those things are fun. But you think about, you go back to your dad and you think about him unpacking those anthuriums in that wherever he was at that time, and the excitement those people had over those flowers. I mean, when you get to travel and see how people get excited about what you do and see your product and how they react to it, I mean, you realize you're making a difference. Like, it's not just some mundane thing. It's a much bigger picture, a much bigger world that you're a part of. And you really, it's like you forgive the pun, but it's like you plant these seeds, and it's like, it's not just pulling weeds or watering or deliveries or shipping. It's a much bigger picture, and you open their eyes to that world, and I think that's great. I really do.
So the boys said, they go to Society of American Florists conventions, or I've allowed them to do a lot of American Institute of Floral Designers symposiums. Sure. And the symposiums is what really has made an impact on them, because they see that they don't normally get access to designers. That's why growers usually traditionally have stayed with the wholesaler. We haven't really spent a lot of time working with designers at florists, but going to AIFD, we had an opportunity to make a lot of friends, acquaintances, see amazing design work, very creative, innovative designers, very talented people. The boys just got really impressed with seeing their product in the field and thinking, well, this is nice. In terms of nice, bring them home, put them in a vase. It's nice, but when they went to AFD and they saw over the top kind of work, that really impressed them. That made them feel like, wow, they're actually producing product that's going into designs like this that people pay money for special events or for weddings, for special lifestyle occasions, and that made a big impact on them. To really see the product in use, because growers normally, you don't really get an opportunity. It doesn't happen every day, in front of us.
Right.
We see the flowers on the floor in the building, in the warehouse. We see the flowers in the field.
In buckets.
In buckets, on a truck, It's not when you see a finished product, something really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like, I'll never forget the very first AIFD event I went to. And it's just like, that's just not, those aren't designs and styles and techniques that you see every day. And realizing again, mind gets blown, and it's all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is, we're a part of this. We're a part of the chain. Yeah, you're a part of that. And I know, and I think too, the kinds of flowers that you distribute and grow and sell just are incredible. I know anthuriums have been a big part of what Green Point Nurseries does, but I know there's more to it though, because I've seen some boxes. So what else is it that your company grows?
So yes, Anthurium, from my father's time, we've always been known to be an Anthurium grower.
Okay.
And since we've gotten more involved with the decision making, over the last, just prior to the Great Recession is when I was really given the opportunity to do our strategic plan and start really making long-term decisions. So that's when Dad said, okay, take over a little bit. Yeah. So I started around that time. And so we just grew more different types of Anthurium. So we have maybe 40 different cultivars that we're working with right now. And the fun part is Dr. Amori at Sitar. She's just releasing more and more product. She's also looking at streamlining the release. So she's actually releasing more product than before. So we're going to have just constantly more product every year coming out for us to study and decide what we want to grow. So we just looking at the market, study the market, see what the market wants, and it's almost limitless. Yeah.
It's crazy. I know recently I did a walkthrough at the Accent Decor showroom here in Atlanta, and they had these, and only way I know to describe it is chocolate anthuriums that were about as big as a dinner plate. I mean, they were huge.
Huge.
And then today, I'm walking through a big box store, actually, because this areca behind me, this palm, I was trying to get something that, Christmas was over, so I wanted something green back there. And so then they have these like little 4-inch decorative pots with little miniature anthuriums in them, with little tiny blooms. And I'm like, I don't think we really grasp the diversity in this family of flowers. And it's incredible, all from tulips to big obakis and everything in between. And I just think I'm excited because I bet the next 10 years we're going to see huge changes in this particular flower, and how it's offered and the varieties and everything else.
Yeah, what Dr. Mori, what she's doing really innovative is she's always worked with growers. So we're considered like an advanced testing site. So we're selected for geographical location or elevation in Hawaii, but she's now working with designers. And so what's happening is the designers are telling her what the market wants, what the customer wants. Not necessarily only limited to what the grower wants, because we're kind of boring, right? We want all bulletproof stuff. We want so perfect plants and flowers, so it makes it easy for us to produce the flower and the foliage. But the designers are saying, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. We want thinner stems, or the flower doesn't have to be that big. The flowers can be smaller. But they also give good insight into a color, the texture of the spadix in relationship to the spade. So a lot of different things that the designer will tell Dr. Amore, the breeder. And so she's incorporating this now as a new practice. So she's going to come up with more product that we see that normally, if she just listens to us, they would be culling, or they would be voiding even before it gets to advanced testing. So we're going to see a lot of different new stuff coming out.
That's exciting. So so what else, or what other flowers are you guys involved in?
So about 10 years ago, we started going into orchids. We felt that we wanted to actually go into orchids, and that would complement our Anthurium line, because what we were planning is that if Dr. Mori can do what we think she can do, there's going to be a lot more color. So rather than just the basic colors of a rainbow, she's going to start coming out with more analogous colors. And so we thought we should start introducing an orchid line. So relatively low elevation orchids is what we started with. So Dendrobium, Mocara, Vandaceous type, Arentera type of orchids. And then we went into Oncidium orchids, which is a little bit higher elevation, but not too high. So we're starting to bring on a new line of orchids, in those generals, and hopefully we can use those orchids to complement the Anthurium line and bring on another crop that, and Hawaii has always been known for orchids, but what is kind of interesting is in the 40s or maybe 50s, Asia, Southeast Asia came to Hawaii and bought a lot of plant material from Hawaii, breeding material.
Interesting.
Took it back to Asia. A lot of the people that run these breeding and tissue culture labs and companies in Southeast Asia now, they were educated at CITAR. So the young guys come here, get educated, go back. They either get government jobs or private industry picks them up. And so what they were trying to do was get germplasm from Hawaii, go back, breed those germplasms, whatever Hawaii was not working on, which was primarily Anthurium and Dendrobium, and come up with new germplasm, just like what we were doing with Dr. Kamimoto with Anthurium and Dendrobium.
Wow.
So what we've done in recent years is we're traveling a lot to Asia, to some of these countries where we are breeders of these type of genera, and purchasing and buying this kind of plant material, bringing it back to Hawaii, and trying to grow those new, I wouldn't say hybrids, but just crosses, grow them in Hawaii, and find out whatever grows well. We start bringing back the coined phrase, the orchid isle, which is our Hawaii island was always known as being called the orchid isle.
Wow.
So we had a lot of orchids coming from Hawaii, but the orchids that we had was of that time. Today, a lot of the breeding that has been done in Southeast Asia, they've crossed and with selection, they've selected better cultivars to market. Bigger flowers, longer stems, face life is longer, pollen caps don't fall off. They handle, of course, they handle maybe the weather there, but they also handle the export. They handle the shipping. So, because a lot of these flowers need to stay in the box a long time from Southeast Asia. Whereas in Hawaii, the flowers don't have to stay as long in the box. We can get with cargo, but you know we're right now we're using more FedEx right now. Any zip code in the country we can hit in 2 days. So the flowers is more timely on delivery. They don't need to go through like international APHIS inspection. We're a certified exporter, so you know we give it to FedEx. FedEx delivers to the door and or hold for pickup if the customer wants it that way. But in 2 days, they can get a shipment from Hawaii. So much faster and fresher. So
well, I think on top of that, though, I know that one of the, like when you're looking at, for example, Costa Rican product or stuff from Central America and the Caribbean, you know, a lot of that product ends up in a cold chain where because you ship FedEx, you don't have the cold chain and the risk of the flowers getting too cold for too long. Even though you may insulate things, I mean, it's still an issue, especially, I mean, I know like this time of year, for example, things usually have to be insulated, but just because, you know, it's cold here, but overall, you know, it's not sitting on a refrigerated truck. So that makes a big difference with a lot of this stuff. So when you, I know my customers bought, a lot of them were buying like assorted boxes that didn't, you know, that had not just, and I assume they're assorted, or maybe you have a list they picked from, or I'm not sure how that works, but there's always amazing things in there that I didn't know if you grew everything or if you source things like with foragers or other smaller farms that don't have distribution that kind of piggyback on your system. How does that work?
Yep. So we do have actually still people that go in the wild and pick stuff for us. So those products would be things that we found very difficult to propagate. Sure. There are certain things like Lycopodium, bamboo orchid foliage, uluhe, the large tree fern, kakuma. A lot of these things, certain things you can propagate, I guess, but it's very unfeasible because it's so seasonal. And certain things we found very difficult to propagate. So we still have people that go and pick for us in the wild. But most of the foliage and the flowers are commercially grown now. Right. So a lot of tropical flowers for us, and tropical foliage has been grown by small independent growers for us. And only recently we've started to produce or to install our own farms of tropical flower and foliage for production. But we still buy most of our stuff from small producers. So we're doing both right now, I guess, what I'm saying. One is as we go into tropical flowers and foliage, what we want to do is go and collect plants and produce things that have not been seen before. So new stuff, yeah, introduce new stuff, fun stuff for the designers. Because if we know what the designers are looking for or have an idea, when we're in Asia, because a lot of stuff is in Asia, we go to like open markets, plant markets, and they're plentiful in Asia. So if you go to plant markets, you sometimes can see something, and so if you find something, then you tissue culture it, and then you bring it back clean. You bring it back clean material, but it's tissue culture, and you can grow it in Hawaii.
Wow.
So Asia can do that for tropical flowers and for cut foliage plants and tropical flower plants. Because a lot of these plants are actually originally from areas in Asia or Southeast Asia.
Sure. Well, one thing I think about too is over the last few years, I want to say it's been about 3 years, I noticed a lot more variety of anthuriums in design work, and not just like hotel pieces, but like wedding bouquets and centerpieces and different things that were not traditionally very tropical in nature. And I was really excited to see that, just from the standpoint of variety, having something different. So have you seen a trend towards more tropicals, more demand for the flowers you produce?
Yes. Just a short story, Scott. I'm going to try and trying to condense this, but maybe in the like 2004, 2005, 2006. So this was pre-Great Recession.
Okay.
Hitomi Gilliam,
Yeah.
AIFD, comes to Honolulu, does a design show at Floradeck, our largest hard goods wholesaler in Honolulu. And so I've known Hitomi for a long time. And so when she was at Floradeck, we got to visiting, and basically we asked her, we want to try and market differently. We were doing, for so many years, we were doing generic marketing. All the marketing was targeted to wholesale distribution primarily. So it was a very certain way of working with the wholesaler, doing design shows, marketing to traditional florists. And that was okay. That was good. That was my father's time. It worked. But the market, we felt, was changing. American Institute of Floral Designers were coming to our attention. Special events people were coming to our attention. And also what was on our mind was we wanted our hospitality, our tourism industry, the hotels, to design differently. So we asked Hitomi, would she help us? And so we started doing events. She would come, and every year we would do a couple events in Hawaii, just to get a feel. So we started with hospitality. The whole goal was, we were on our island. The west side of the island is where you have really nice. Nothing wrong with the east side hotels, but the west side is pretty much the Gold Coast. That's where all the tourism is. So we went to Manalani, was our first hotel. And we invited designers from all the different hotels to come. And we did a workshop there. And Hitomi put on a really nice workshop. And we invited, the staff of Manalani was invited also, at least the leadership. And basically her message was, hospitality comes to Hawaii, tourists come to Hawaii, and hospitality's goal is to wow the tourists. So when they're paying, $500 a night, beautiful floral arrangements in the lobby, flowers in the food and beverage, flowers in the room. And what we wanted the hotel to do was wow the visitors, so that they would have a very unique experience when coming into a lobby or in a hotel on the Big Island, on Hawaii Island, and for that matter, statewide. And then we kept doing these type of events, and we also did an event at Macy's in Ala Moana Shopping Center, and this was a kind of a coming out thing for Green Point. So we had Alan Wong, the renowned Alan Wong chef, Hitomi Gilliam, and Green Point. We teamed up and we did two seminars on a Saturday, back to back, with Alan Wong's 8th anniversary Food for the Senses.
Wow.
It was like a feast there. He put on an eighth anniversary for that pineapple room there, and so we basically told me, okay, now what we want to do is do events. We want people to we were showing people that flowers can be used in hotels in new and exciting ways, especially Anthurium. But we also wanted to show the event people, maybe the food people, but the event people, that flowers can be complementary to food too. And so we kept, and that was a blast. I mean, we had a lot, all of the events. We had media, and so we got these things that we did created practice for us. So
I see.
once we felt we were onto something, at the Feast for the Senses, Hitomi came up with the theme Neotropica.
Yeah.
And so that was her gift. She came up with this, and so she defined Neotropica as designing tropical flowers in a new, you know, fascinating, enlightening way. So people would normally see tropicals, your Anthurium would be it kind of like it as the base flower or in the middle, and your large heliconias and gingers would be on the top. So every design would be very similar that you would see. But what she was doing was using armature and using modern mechanics and tricks of the trade. A lot of the hard goods that was available today. She was doing design where flowers were not typically in place you would think you would see them. So
right.
she was really mixing it up, and just that thought got us thinking, wow, Neotropica, what we need to do is first we need to get on a national stage, and we need to show people that first tropicals can be used as the ideal event flower. And then we went on to say what we also thought was no one really considers using tropicals for wedding work, flower bouquets, wedding work. So we also went on to tell ourselves we want to show the designers. We were already targeting the designers because we felt they were our messengers. They would be the influencers, and some of them would be the disruptors. That tropicals can be used in wedding work too.
Right.
And we went with this Neotropica
Well,
theme.
it's very unexpected. It's
Yes.
like, and I think especially for people who don't normally gravitate towards that or don't normally think of tropicals, it's just because it's non-traditional. And when they see it that way, it even makes it more powerful. It makes it more dramatic because it isn't expected. And then you see, you're like, whoa, that color. Like, I didn't even know Anthuriums came in that color, or the proteas, or the things that can mix in. And and it's a great, I mean, I just think it's a great incorporation of the product. And so Hitomi works magic no matter what she does, and I'm so thrilled that I know
she's phenomenal educator, very 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 good with articulating a concept, a message, but education is really her forte, and she's easy to talk to. She's easy to be with. So when we thought, okay, let's get, especially because in these days when you're thinking we're going through just a pre-recession. Didn't really hit yet, but 2007, 8, 9, it hit. But we said we got to keep going with this concept. So for the last 10 years, we've been showing our product at special events. I guess it's a convention, as well as AIFD symposium. And I think by showing the flowers at AIFD, I think we really, it sank in. I think the designers there saw, whether it was in our company or industry booths at AIFD or on stage or at meals, they saw that tropical flowers were the event product because they gave you the wow factor. It popped. The colors you could design in monochromatic coloring, or you could mix and go analogous.
Right.
You can start early because the flowers last long. So for event work, you could reuse the flowers. So I think we drove home that message. And when we got to the weddings, we felt we really need to get into the wedding market because the wedding market was dominated by most likely soft colors or soft flowers. So previous, what we talked to Hitomi about, and she came up with the idea, we should make a guidebook. Technically, it's an ingredient book. We call it an ingredient book, where it's the Hawaii flower and plant guide. It's the Neotropica guidebook, and so we published. The industry went and believed in it, and we published it. So we printed it, and we distributed it. So we're in our second print, and we distribute it free at AIFD right now, just to get into the hands of the designers. And so what it showed was, at least the second edition, if you have the guidebook, it shows all the different tropical flowers arranged in the book by color. Because what we want to show is there are so much diverse product coming out of Hawaii in all the colors that you need or you can imagine. So you can use all these different products with similar color palettes. And it was Hitomi's design of the book. She felt this is what would help the designers. So the first book was more an ID book, but the second one really came out focusing more on color. So we used that book to educate, whether it was trying to get more tropicals into event work or trying to explain that, hey, tropical flowers has the color, and if used properly, has the softness to get into weddings. But we really didn't hit the ball out of the park until Hitomi came up with the concept tropical Nouveau. And so that's what our industry grabbed onto, and we've been running with for the past few years. So tropical Nouveau is a concept where in Hawaii, we tend to go 60% tropical flower and 40% temperate. On the mainland, it's probably just the total opposite. Yeah. On the mainland, they're going to have less tropical. So you're gonna be more inclined to use more temperate flowers, but just a little bit of tropical. I mean, whatever that percentage is, it's really up to the designer. It can be a minimum 10-20%, or it could be 40-50%. Yeah.
Right.
But just a blend. And to get into the wedding work, what's really important is it's the skill on placement and selection of the tropical product that you want to use, and then softening that tropical flower with temperate flower, whether it's garden roses or carnations or whatever you wanted to use. Yeah,
Sure.
Lilies,
Hydrangea. Yeah.
Yeah, and using hydrangea, and of course, orchids also helps to soften the design and arrangements and bouquets too. So whether you use Phalaenopsis or Dendrobium or whatever you're going to tend to use, Oncidium.
Right. Well, I know there's a lot of things. I wish we had about 12 hours to talk about some things, because there's so many things that are interesting to me that you guys have to deal with, whether it's lava flows or hurricanes or typhoons, whatever you call them on that side of the world, those kinds of things. But I want to make sure before we hop off, because I feel like a lot of times, we would get questions about processing, about how cold can flowers take it. If I get in dendrobiums, can they go in the cooler? Or when you get them fresh, they can just sit in a vase at room temp. I mean, I don't know do you have some pointers on that? Because
Sure.
I think that a lot of times people are afraid of what they don't know or understand. And if there is any flower that you can work with that is more forgiving, I can't think of it. Tropicals to me
Mhm.
are the most forgiving flowers when it comes to all those things. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'd love
Well,
some
first,
tips.
so first of all, keep your container clean. Keep your water clean, room temperature. Now, if you wanted to go into a cooler like 40 degrees, well, birds, cymbidiums, protea can probably take that kind of cold temperature. But the other orchids, Anthurium, tropical flower, probably can't. Some of the foliage, yeah, tea leaves, some these kind of certain foliage can take cold 40 degrees too. So you gotta experiment it within your own cooler. But I would say in general, 60 degrees would give 55 is a little chilly, but 60 degrees would be a good, it's coined in the old days, they used to call it orchid cooler, right?
Right.
You can put all your tropical flowers in a 60-degree cooler, clean container, clean water. You don't have to put any preservative in the water. Just keep the ends of the stems cut clean in clean water, clean container, and change out the water, as often as you like, but probably in the cooler, every 3 to 4 days, maybe change it out. Or if you see the water getting cloudy, change it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say probably give it a fresh cut at that point too.
Give it a
Uh,
fresh cut again,
right.
change the water out.
Well, the thing that is so fascinating to me, and then sometimes I hear this, well, if Hawaiian anthuriums are more expensive than from Central America and stuff. And the thing about it is that I kept hearing time and time and time again is that a Hawaiian anthurium lasts 2, maybe 3 weeks if you take care of it right. That's not going to usually happen with anthuriums from other places. But and that was the great thing because it might have been a little more expensive per stem, but when you can use it, get it back, use it again somewhere else, if
That's a
that
plus.
if that works for you. I mean, it
Yep.
doesn't always work, but if it does work for you, or at least, you don't have to worry about a higher degree of maintenance on a weekly or a hotel account or something like that because it's sort of on autopilot just because it's such a great
Yes.
flower.
Hmm.
And do you recommend? I know back when I first got into the wholesale end of this, there were some sprays that people would use that were like sealants, kind of like I was thinking of is it Hawaiian Mist or something like that that
Hmm.
was a product that was kind of like a paraffin
Yes.
based product. Do you recommend that or do you really need that?
Um, Most of the product that we have here in Hawaii that responds, we're using what you refer to as Hawaiian floral mist.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody remembers that brand, but it was being sold quite often for tropical flowers, and you could buy a 200 ppm pre-mix already. And so Hawaiian floral mist was the convenience was it was already mixed for you. It came in like a gallon or a quart, and you could mist your anthurium or your tropical flower or foliage with it. It doesn't work on everything. So what we found is protea, to a degree, birds, orchids. It didn't help those flowers. But anything like anthurium, which is the spade is a modified leaf.
Right.
So what Hawaiian floral mist will do is anything as a modified leaf or any foliage, what it does is even if you've harvested the foliage or the flower, the benzoyl aniline, which is inside that Hawaiian floral mist that is pre-mixed at 200 ppm, is helping that chlorophyll activate. So that
Oh,
growth
okay.
that growth regulator or growth hormone, which is a natural organic um, enzyme. I guess it's a protein or enzyme. It it naturally kickstarts the chlorophyll, and that's like in nature. That's so we use benzoyl in tissue culturing. We put
Mhm.
it in the medium because it helps the tissue become calloused, and then eventually the callus form shoots, and that's what we're trying to do: form as many shoots as we can of the callus, the undifferentiated cells.
Right, right.
So Hawaiian floral mist, I mean, if people can still get it, yeah, they definitely should use that, spray that. I'm sure there's other products on the market from Floral Life that are doing the same thing. So definitely, whatever they can find and use on tropical flowers. For us, we treat everything before it goes out. So what we usually recommend to our customers is right now, you don't have to overbuy. First of all, there's no sense of you buying something in the beginning of the week, holding it all week long, and then having to use that for end of the week for your event work at the end of the week. Um, because with FedEx, you can buy what you need and just take two shipments. The product comes in, inventory turns, the customer gets a fresh product, the consumer gets a long-lasting product. It performs well. If you're
Yeah,
buying
and
it at the beginning of the week and then you want to use it at the end of the week, you've already eaten up, 7 days possibly of the vase life of the product. So you cannot ask that product to perform 2 to 3 weeks because you're eating it up. You're eating the time up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. And with FedEx, I don't know that it really matters expense wise because whether you have a bigger box or a smaller box or two smaller boxes, the weight,
Hmm.
the cubes, everything is the same. So you're really not saving anything by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. If somebody wanted to just say, hey, I wanted a sort of tropical box, does someone from your team like pull that together, maybe take a picture for them to see it? How does that work? I mean, how if
Yep.
because people who aren't used to working with that kind of product might not even know what to ask for, and
Sure.
they might have trust issues where they're like, okay, so I don't know what I'm going to get, I need to have some idea. So how does that work on
Hmm.
your end?
So first of all, if they were to call a salesperson, um, and this would probably be our training. So I don't know how everybody does it, but for us, um, our salespeople would first of all find out, of course, obviously who they're talking to.
Sure.
Do they have the Neotropical Guide, Flower and Plant Guide? First of all, because what you want to do is you want to be talking about the same flower, so the buyer on the other end would be looking through the guide, pick what they want. It would tell you page number, photo number. So our salespeople would be knowing exactly what they're talking about. So you're not going to have it cuts down tremendous amount of misunderstandings and mistakes, shipping the wrong color, for example. Yeah. Then
Right.
then the buyer would ask for consulting from our salesperson to find out what is available in the market when they needed it. Because a lot of time, what happens is the buyer is asking for something, and when they really need it, the product's not going to be available. The season's over. So the salesperson here is really trying to make sure, when do you need this? Because this is not going to be in season when what you're pointing to. This is going to be out of season when you want it. So recommendation is use this as a substitute. But if
Well,
they want something,
go ahead.
but if they want something immediate, let's say they're buying something that week, yeah, then
Right.
definitely what our salespeople can do is grab the product, take a picture, text it to the buyer immediately, and they can put together mixes that way, custom mixes, or we also have pre-made mixes.
Well, one thing you just said something that made me think, and I know we were just talking about that there are seasons in Hawaii, but I guess
Yes.
I think of tropicals like Anthuriums, for example, just continually blooming. They might slow down a little bit, or they
Yep.
might flush like a rose kind of does for roses.
Yes.
But is there that big of a season on most flowers, or is it like where it's just not around for a few weeks, or is it like, for 5 6 months this is in season and then it's not? How does that
Right.
work? Because when you're trying to plan things, that's a good thing to know.
Sure. So Anthurium is all pretty much available all year round.
Okay.
So it's always available. We do have seasonality, so the flushes come and go, but it's pretty much all year round blooming. More or less, orchids are that way too. It's just that the seasonality of orchids, you're going to have a little bit, the peaks and valleys are going to be a little bit more deeper on orchids, but most of the dendrobium, the oncidium, the Vandaceous, Arantera type, Mocara type, is all year round. It just peaks and valleys a little bit. Where you have real seasonality is in the certain type of heliconias and certain type of exotics. So your calatheas, your spectabilis, green eyes, your costas, that these type of flowers, they'll probably be in bloom maybe for 3-4 months, and then they go off bloom. Some of them bloom 2 times a year. Some of them only bloom once a year. So what we try to do is have an assortment that is always coming in every 3 to 4 months. So you have something of an exotic, but it's not probably exactly the same one. Foliage is pretty much, I would say, pretty much all year round. Yeah.
Okay. 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 So I know recently, well, when I say recently, it's been what, maybe 2.5 years ago, the whole lava flow situation was happening. And how did that impact your business?
Oh, 2018, we had Pu'o vent go off, and then it became Fissure 8, and they still, the county still hasn't named Fissure 8, but it has subsided. I think the eruption was 4 months, maybe 3 months, or something like that. So it wasn't a long period of time of the eruption, but devastating. Yeah, it took out more than 700 homes in this area.
Wow.
Of specifically more focused in the Kapoho area, which is the second time it has erupted. The first one was, or at least in my time, was 1960, when it took out the Kapoho village. They had a small village down there in 1960s. Fish, vegetable growers, fruit growers, sunflower growers, fishermen. They all had to get evacuated. So with this eruption in 2018, it took out a lot of dendrobium growers, potted orchid growers down in this area. Low elevation orchid production, dendrobium, Vandaceous type, Mocara type orchid producers. So, excuse me, we had a partnership there that we lost. We were partnering with Orchid Plantation. The proprietors were Elton and Elisa Mao. So we were partnering with them. We owned some plants. They owned the real estate and the greenhouses or the shade houses. And they owned some plants. And then we had a marketing agreement that the lava basically just took that nursery out. It's about 50 feet under lava right now.
Wow, 50 feet. That's a lot of lava.
That's a lot of lava. Yeah, people don't realize how much when the lava came down, it's not so much. Well, I don't know. I've never been in a mudslide. I'm assuming mudslides can be really deep too, but we were just totally blown away with how much lava. I mean, the Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory was reporting so many, like hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of lava, but it's hard to fathom unless you go there and you see the height of the lava. If you're on regular ground and you see how deep that lava was, how thick it was, so it just buried. There's nothing that could get out of the way of the lava.
Yeah, you can't stop it. You can't divert it. I mean, it's just, it is what it is, and it's just awful, awful. One thing I wondered too is, when you have a big impact like that, because that was one relationship you had, but obviously other people probably were impacted too.
Yeah.
You think,
Oh yeah.
how many years does it take to come back from something like that?
Takes a long time. Some people will never come back, and that's the sad part. You had down there, I would say you had second generation nurserymen and women farming. So farms that started from their parents,
Wow.
that they lost everything. So the investment of land, shade house, greenhouse, warehouses, homes, equipment, plant, material, and whatever is required to run the nursery, it just buried everything.
And it's not
It
like like a storm or a fire or a
Yeah,
mudslide that you can recover from. I mean, the lava's still there,
yeah,
and you can't.
yeah,
It's not like you can just, I can build on top of lava now, or I can,
yeah.
excavate it
Well,
out. Yeah.
eventually, I think when the lava does cool, and like in the 1960 lava flow, my dad told me it took 5 years to cool, and eventually started mining cinder from the Kapoho lava flow in 1960. So for him, as a nurseryman up in Upper Puna, which he was at about 1,500 feet elevation, and Kapoho is you're down at like 25 feet elevation. So in 5 years he was buying cinder and being trucked up to his nursery up in Mountain View, his first nursery, and he basically was one of the first to use cinder as a growing media for
Interesting.
Anthurium production. But this lava flow that recently 2018, I'm assuming if it takes 5 years, you can be sure that people are going to want to go back on their land after it's cooled, and they'll take bulldozers and they're going to start leveling the ground, and there'll be some people trying to start farms again on that lava.
Hmm.
They're resilient. Yeah,
That's
farmers are
incredible.
farmers are resilient. They're very determined people. Now, not everybody is going to do that. If you're in your 70s, and you don't want to take on any more debt, you probably are going to decide not to do that, because putting in nurseries, it's a long-term debt, yeah, that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So you if you do it, then who's behind you? Like, who is going to who are you going to hand it over to, or will someone buy it? Because Kapoho has already been inundated twice, yeah. So
So
people
scary.
people people are going to know, because zone one is known that every square mile is going to get covered at least once in 100 years. That's
Wow.
kind of like
Really?
that's kind of like the definition. So you have a window. It could be 100 years, but in this case, Kapoho, the 1960 eruption came, and then in 2018, so 60 years later, it got run over again. So
Crazy.
it didn't wait 100 years. Yeah.
So do
Yeah.
you have like property in multiple places? That way, if any one thing were to happen, then you've
Yeah.
got backup plans or
Yeah. Yeah. So what we did was we took out some plants, but we couldn't take it all.
right.
Yeah, we little, I would say, little regret there. We just should have started hastily taking out more plants sooner. So we took out some plants, germplasm that we wanted, that we wanted to produce. So we're producing it in Panaeva now, which is about from 25 feet elevation. We're at about 250, 300 feet elevation now. Plants are growing, but they need to, when you get up this high, you need to put it on the greenhouse already.
Hmm.
Down in the Kapoho area, where it's almost oceanfront, you could grow it on the shade cloth, and that was the beauty down there. The climate was very much like Thailand, hot, uh, dry, humid, but getting about 60 inches of rain a year, maybe 40 to 60 maybe.
Hmm.
So you're getting ample rainfall, but it's just warm and hot because you're at low elevation. So
Yeah.
you get that humidity every day, and that's what the orchids like. They like the humidity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I understand why you have to do it, and it's so
Hmm.
crazy how you have to do all of that. Um, Couple things. I know we're getting towards the end of our interview. I wanted to ask you, are there any new things that you're getting ready to release? Anything exciting that maybe we need to be looking for?
Mm. Well, we've been working on, of course, new varieties of Anthurium.
Right.
So we do have some new varieties, or relatively new varieties of Anthurium that is coming into commercial production. So we're starting to release some of those now. Um, we have beautiful, I would say, whites, pinks right now, and we're bringing back more like a bright red into the market. So we'll have, I think, more supply of Anthurium. As far as orchids, we're increasing our supply of Oncidium. I think the market is telling us they like the cultivars that we're producing at our Kurdistan location, which is about 900 feet elevation. So it's a little bit higher elevation orchid. So we're increasing a nice yellow Oncidium, a real clean, bright yellow Oncidium. As far as increasing Dendrobium and Mocara, we're putting in new production now. We're building new greenhouses down in Paneva, which is about 300 feet, 250, 300 feet elevation, undercover. So we'll be hopefully soon bringing in new production that trying to replace the production that we lost, yeah, in Kapoho.
Yeah.
We are seriously looking at putting in more tropical flowers and different types of cut foliage also to add to the mix. Things that hopefully we can find that are new and novel that the designers want.
Yeah, that's always the challenge, I know, but I think so many times when you open a box like what you send out, it's always like Christmas morning or something, where you get this surprise. You never know what you're going to get, and it's always something fun that challenges your design skills and learning how to adapt it. And I think that's great. I wanted to ask you because I ask every guest, but I feel like you have a family farm, you're with multi-generational roots, and I always feel like I always like to end with asking about advice, like a piece of advice that
Mm-hmm.
you would want to give, or maybe somebody gave you along the way, that especially to our flower farmers that are out there, that are trying to, like, create this legacy kind of like you.
Sure, that's a tough question, but when it comes for me personally, my dad always told me, um, if we don't continue to innovate, we will not survive. We have to be creative. We have to look for innovation, and we have to believe in ourselves. So I would say, be true to yourself. If you've done your homework, you really believe in what you're doing, um, then go ahead, be the best that you can be at what you're doing, because you will never be satisfied unless you try. As far as my boys, what I am trying to do, my I guess my duty is to prepare them for the future. And as you know, climate change is going to be probably the biggest impact on domestic producers in the country, not not even mentioning the world. Yeah.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is harden up the farms, prepare, put in our PV electric, do our research on battery, um, put in our water systems, whether it's wells or above ground catchments with gutter connecting, with this, which is what we're doing on our nurseries now. Um, making that long term investments in the nursery, where the next generation, it's going to be to their advantage. So it's going to be make them more resilient. In Hawaii, what we're not little nervous about is to put that long-term investments in where it doesn't offer the next generation advantage, because the market is non-guaranteed right now.
Right.
You know, if you can pick your product that you want to produce, that you feel is going to give you the return that you need, then fine. But you also got to remember, you got to pick your customer that you want to service, a customer that likes Hawaii, a customer that likes doing business with you, a customer that believes in your company, your culture, the value of your product, and is willing to pay you a fair market price where you can show a good profit so that you continue to reinvest in your company. If you can do all of these things, you will be doing your due diligence and helping to create legacy for your family business.
That's really powerful. Thank you. I really especially connect with that statement that your dad said about innovating, because I feel like so many times, farms or growers, they do the same thing year after year after year, and it worked. I mean, it did work, and it does work, but then there's somebody who ends up with the latest and greatest, and the focus often changes then to this other producer, and it's like things continue to evolve and change in the flower industry, tastes, design styles, all of these things, and the flowers have to kind of move with that. And I think that's really important, and that's an incredible piece of advice that your dad gave you and demonstrated as well. Plus, I really like what you had to say about the investing and putting those pieces in place for that next generation, and hopefully you can pick the right pieces to really benefit. Well, Eric, I can't, again, I know we could have talked even longer, but I really appreciate you sharing your story and sort of this evolution of your company with this wonderful collection of blooms that I hope more people try and more people explore, because it's definitely an amazing collection of blooms. So thank you so much for being on the Flower Podcast.
Thank you, Scott, so much for having us and for allowing us to tell a short story about what we do. And we just all we want to do is just make a few people happy with our flowers that we produce.
That's great.
That's all we want to do.
Yeah, and it only takes a handful, right?
Yep.